Hey everybody, happy Saturday.
How's it going? Good to see everyone in chat. Hopefully you're doing well today. And for those of you listening to the podcast, hopefully you're also doing excellently today. Whether it's Monday through Sunday, we appreciate you listening. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone in the chat room right now, live on Twitch, twitch.tv/MindMineTV for another Serious Talk Saturday, where we dive into left brain and right brain topics, how they intersect and how they impact your life. And then we discuss them a little bit more, go into conversation based on the baggage, our personal belief systems and everything that we bring along with us. And we lay it all out on the table and try to get a really good conversation going. So thank you very much for making this another awesome Saturday. Appreciate it.
Did you say baggage?
Well, you know, I mean, like, we all
it.
carry like a certain amount of like baggage
Yes.
or like bag of experiences or like
Yes.
you can call it a toolbox. You can call it many different things, you know. Some people say baggage like, oh, I've got baggage, like I've got personal problems. But baggage isn't always a bad thing, right? I mean, baggage helps you get your things from one point to another. So again, even though there is that kind of negative connotation to it, you could also spin it into a positive. Again, it's just the things that you carry around with you that you have from experience. And that's all. It doesn't have to be positive, doesn't have to be negative. It could also just be neutral too, you know? So it's just whatever you bring with you and then incorporate into what you're doing at that very point in time.
Indeed. My baggage is matching. I have a few suitcases. And you know what? It's really pretty. It's got cats on it. Little aqua turquoise going on. My baggage is pretty cute. I will say.
So you got to have good-looking baggage. Good-looking baggage.
That's right. That's right. You gotta put some stickers on there, some pins. Maybe throw a blanket on it when you're just sitting.
That's right. And you could have really nice baggage. You could have everything in grocery bags. It doesn't matter. Whatever you got.
Yeah.
Just bring it along with you. Bring that experience along with you. Share it with the world.
That's right. Plus, it's nice to look at some people's baggages sometimes. Like, oh, where'd you get that from?
That almost was getting a little bit in the creepy realm there. Like, she's at the airport just staring and scanning for like really cute baggage going, oh, that's nice. She just like walks up to someone, hey, where'd you get that baggage? That's nice baggage. You mind if I take it for a drive for like the next 30 minutes? I'll return it, I swear.
And then you pull it and you realize it's really heavy. You're like, never mind. Why don't you hold on to that?
That's yours. I'll let you handle that.
Just do it up. Just do it up. So, what's in store for today?
That's a good question. Well, so we've been tackling 35 deep questions you've probably never asked yourself, and kudos if you have. And we covered the first 5 questions. I'm just going to hit on those first 5 questions just to give you a sense of where these questions are going. And what we're doing throughout today is going to be sharing our answers to these questions, but also letting you share yours in chat. So, feel free. This is a conversation. So, jump in, join in. When we ask these questions, it's not just for Tatiana and I, it's for you all in chat as well. So feel free to jump in. But the first 5 were these. What event in your life would make a good movie? What job would you be absolutely horrible at? What piece of media, book, movie, TV show, etc. changed the way you viewed the world, and in what way? And what's the most crucial thing for a healthy relationship? And number 5 was, what lies do you most often tell yourself? So we're going to try to tackle a few more here today. Our goal is another 5, but if we can do more, awesome. Again, we're doing this in a 2-hour span, and we get some really good conversations going. So we will see where this takes us. But this is part 2 in the series, and I'm sure we'll have a few more parts to the series as well, because these are just really good questions, and I think really interesting, as a lot of these you don't think about asking yourself, like, what would I do in this situation, or how would I summarize this or that? And again, we always like to say that our conversations here at MindMine are all about getting us to think in new ways, or better understanding different pathways of communication or ways of thinking. And these questions really hit the nail on the head, I think, of doing just that, and hearing from different people from all over the world in our chat as they discuss these as well, and what that actually means to them, what that statement or question means, or specific words mean, and how they incorporate it and interpret it and just project it out into chat to us. So it's really cool. It's really, really cool experience, and I'm glad that you're here to join us for this. Now, do you want to hit on the first question? Should I hit on the first question? Or did you want to cover anything in chat real quick before we get started?
Yep, I can do the first question.
You do it? All right.
Let's do it. All right. Is it possible to live a normal life and not ever tell a lie? And I say normal, and I put air quotes on there because to me, normal has always been an average of something. I believe actually, I might be having the wrong description here of normal in mathematical terms, but I believe normal is the mean. It's the average, right? So to me, when I look at this question, you know, if you want to have sort of the usual, the average point of the spectrum of lives that you can have or that we all have, and not ever tell a lie, I say no. Because in the cultures that we live in, that I have experienced, it is almost impossible to never tell a lie. And there's a lot of different kinds of lies. There's little lies. There's big lies.
Well, and they say there's a lie and then there's like a white lie. Well, it didn't really harm anyone. It was actually kind of helpful. Like when, someone asks you, do I look fat in these pair of jeans? And you go, no, of course not. It's like, well, it's a white lie, but it made them feel good.
Right. Or if someone says, do you think I have a chance to win the lottery? And they look at you with hopeful eyes and you're like, yeah, you do. Sure. Yeah,
you have like a 0.000018% chance, but yeah, I mean, there's this chance. There's that chance right there. It's not zero. It's not in the negative. That'd be weird.
Right. And I think sometimes we tell lies, of course, as we talked in our last episode, to ourselves. But also you tell lies to encourage someone, right? Like even if maybe you don't think someone, I don't know, has the skill set to pick up a new sport, but they're really excited about it and they really want to try it. Do you really want to be like, no, you're going to suck at it if that's what you feel like? I mean, maybe telling them, yeah, I think you'll do a great job, and then supporting them in their endeavor actually makes them succeed at it, right? So there's different kinds of lies. So I think to live a, quote, normal life, I don't think it's possible not to tell a lie. Now, to live a life, of course it's possible never to lie. You'd be a very, very, very honest person. You can also not, speak it, right? If someone asks you a question, you can just not answer. Then you're not telling any lies.
Yeah, it's like you're looking at the literal answer to the question, but then there's also like the psychological and all these other elements that then come in and really make it more complicated.
Yeah, but I would say just overall, I think my answer to this particular question would be like, I don't think it's possible to live a normal life and not ever tell a lie, which is sad.
Well, no, I mean, it also depends on what you mean by, or like the situation of it all, I guess, in the end. Like, for instance, our subconscious can actually, in a way, lie to us as well. There's times where our brain tries to figure out what we're looking at or trying to recall a situation that happened. And sometimes just so that way it can fit the pieces all together and so that there's no like blank spots in the puzzle, it will try to fill it in with something. And so sometimes it pulls additional or extraneous information from something else. And this is where we get these issues where, like, for instance, 5 people can see a car accident, and a lot of times their responses or their retelling of it are different based on how they were feeling that day, based on their past experiences, just a multitude of things. So, when we say lying, it's like, do we mean also intentional lying or kind of this innate lying that our brains just do to help us survive and move forward? And that's also a coping mechanism too, because a lot of people that go through traumatic incidences, sometimes their mind just kind of tunes that out. It like puts all the negative behind the door as if it never happened.
Right.
And locks it with a key and then throws it away.
It's like the body is trying to protect itself.
Exactly.
Or the mind is trying to protect itself.
Yeah. It's like, maybe over time we can, work through this, but, all at once it's too much. And so there's that kind of subconscious lying in a way that we can do to ourselves. But then there's also the intentional lying, whether it be a white lie like, hey, no, you don't look fat at all in that, pair of jeans. Or that lie of like, oh, no, of course, I spoke to the guy for you. I spoke to the boss and, I tried putting in a good word for you, but they just said they didn't have enough money to give you a bonus when really you didn't do a damn thing. Or maybe you spoke up for yourself instead so that way you could get the bonus. There's that kind of lying as well. And I agree with you, honestly. I feel personally that there is no way of avoiding lying in one sense or the other. And sometimes it depends on the situation. Sometimes the lie is better than not at all. Because even too, when you sustain from lying or sustain from answering, you're still answering something, right? Like you might not go into detail, but sometimes too, for instance, you could say, if someone asks you, is everything fine? You just go, yes. Even if it's horrible and you don't go in the detail of it, just giving that one word answer is still a lie then, right? If you're not doing well, then it's a no.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just to save you time. Sometimes it's just to save the other person's time. And sometimes it's like, well, this person's just asking kind of habitually real quick. Like when you bump into someone and go, oh, hi. And then you move on. Sometimes they're just like, oh, how's it going? They're not really sometimes looking for that in-depth, like, oh, horrible, my dog passed away and, my car is in a shop right now. Like they're not looking for all that detail. And sometimes it is just easier, and just appreciate, hey, at least thanks for asking, even though you're not really looking for an in-depth answer, but just like, oh, fine, thanks.
Yeah, well, I feel like the hello, how are you is just, it shouldn't even be a question. I feel like it's more of a statement nowadays anyways. It's like a greeting. It's a standard greeting, like greetings, mortal. Except it's like, hello, how are you?
Which I hate, honestly, because
Me too.
I feel like it's such a waste of time, such a waste of communication in a way. It's like, if you want to talk to a person, then talk to them. If you don't want to talk to them, then just don't talk to them. Like, in my mind, I always get frustrated because I have several people who have said, oh, hey, how's it going? And I go, oh, good, how are you? And they just keep walking by, or they don't answer. And because to them, that was just like a, hey.
Or if you do answer them and it's not good, the answer is not good, they just look at you like, oh, well, I wasn't expecting you to say stuff. I don't want to deal with your shit. And it's like, then don't ask. I mean, it's fine. It's fine to not ask.
Yeah, it's like, don't use language in a way where it's just like a head nod. Just head nod. Just like, okay, and move on. Like, I personally, like, I hate frivolous conversations. I love getting in depth, which is why we do this show. I love getting in depth and talking about real things. And if it's just about, if it's elevator chit chat, I just hate that. It's like, I want to get to know the person if I'm going to talk to you and everything like that. I mean, it can be for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be for half an hour, 45 or 5 hours. Like, 5 minutes is fine too, but then invest that time into people. Otherwise, I just feel like, you know what? I'm wasting my time because you don't care. And you're wasting my time because you don't care. So just let me do me and you do you and we'll move on.
Right. And there's something nice about sharing small tidbits, whatever you are comfortable with sharing, when you are in such a situation as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Crazy Doc says too, I'm fine or I'm good. The standard lie we tell everybody. It pretty much is. It really is true. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. You? Oh, fine. Oh, good. Okay. Have a nice day.
Yeah, the most useless conversation on the street ever. And it's okay. Sometimes you are good and the other person is fine.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah. Trunk has shared something about lying in chat. I actually played a role-playing game where I was a priest following a religion that required you to not tell any lies. That's kind of cool. You could keep your silence for very important reasons, but you were supposed to be forthright and even correct others' mistakes. It was not a popular character in the group and difficult as hell to play. Yes, exactly. And then we've had some of those experiences in our own lives where we were forthright and honest, and it wasn't received very well, unfortunately.
Yeah, and Denise, to go off that too, says, but being 100% truthful can offend people, though. And that's the 100% truth, actually, right there. Right. It's like you can't win. And again, we talked about this last Saturday, where our language is so hypocritical, at least in the US, where, you know, we tell ourselves one thing, and then in another situation we tell ourselves something that contradicts what we already told ourselves. So for example, in this case, you know, they always say, well, I shall not tell a lie. You know, it's important to be truthful. You know, we want political candidates that are truthful. We want, you know, lawyers and doctors that are truthful. We want all these people that are truthful. But don't be too truthful, because then you're an asshole. And that's the thing that always drives me nuts, is the fact when people do that as well. It's like, okay, what do you want? Do you want people to be truthful, or do you want them to be assholes? Or, you know what I mean? Like, or do you want them to be honest, even if it's honest to a fault? You know what I mean? And I do sometimes fall into the honest into a fault. Like, you know, if I'm feeling a certain way, I'm going to tell someone. But it's about how you present it, I think, too. But even then, there are so many people out there that are so, I feel like, self-conscious that they can't take the truthful feedback. It's not that you may have delivered it inappropriately, or, you know, not politically correct to them, or however. You could have, you know, done it in a very nice way, packaged it up with a nice little bow, and people will still get triggered by it. It's tough. You know, I feel like you're never going to win. It's like either you're going to be truthful to a fault and then get people hating you, which I've had that happen, or, you know, you're not truthful and you're lying, but then you personally feel like crap because you lied at times, and you feel like there's more pressure and weight on you.
Right.
It's a tough situation, and I don't think there is a right or wrong. I think it's very dependent on the situation, on the people, on the experience and the understanding of said people. There are a lot of elements involved with that situation.
Yeah, I've definitely found that the only time I'm brutally honest, and I don't mean brutally like, you suck and brutal, but just, I'm going to tell you the truth, whether or not you ask me. But if I feel that it's someone that's close to me and I want to help them, or they have asked me for my honest opinion, I have no problem being truthful about that. But if I don't take stock, or what am I trying to say? If that person isn't important to me, I'll just lie. For me, it's not worth the conflict of having them hate me for that 1 minute of myself feeling good for not lying, because it's not worth it. I'm not going to see them again. You know, they might not be part of my life in a way that impacts me directly. And, you know, you can tell sometimes when you're speaking to someone that they're not going to listen to what you have to say. Like, it's just going to go over their head. Or you've said it before and they've chose to ignore it. So, okay, well, the second time, yeah, okay, I'm going to lie to you. And you're just going to have a terrible life, and I'm so sorry, goodbye. And that's sort of what I've had to do, because I hate conflict. I'm just so bad at being in the midst of conflict. It's hurtful for me physically and mentally, and so I will only put myself in that situation if I care about somebody, you know, and if I care about the future of that relationship, or whether it's, you know, family or friends or romantic. If I feel like it's worth investing in it, I will tell you the truth, and we will have honest and open communication, and that's the types of people that I want to surround myself with. Realizing that, you know, the truth isn't always going to be rainbows and butterflies, because that's not the kind of society that we live in, and that's not how children are brought up, and it's just not how we function. And that's difficult for me too, because if we all just honest with each other and ourselves, like, we would just all be so much happier. But we're not, and that's frustrating.
Well, I think too, even if you do present your opinion and your thoughts and your feelings honestly to someone in a way that works, right? Where you say, hey, maybe it's just me, maybe this is just my folk psychology kicking in and my assumptions based on my own personal baggage. And again, please let me know your thoughts, but these are my issues. Even if you bring things up that way, I just feel that people need to work through their shit. And I don't mean just the people being honest, I mean the people who are taking in the criticism too. Like, people just really need to work on their shit, but they're so readily, I guess, not able, but just
they've
readily
got a wall up.
they're readily wanting to lie to themselves.
Right.
And as soon as anyone starts, breaking a hole through that wall, chipping away at it, they get super pissed off because they're afraid of taking on their own personal issues. And I think a lot of that has to do, for instance, like what's being taught through the education process. Like for instance, we learn about history, we learn about mathematics, we learn about sociology to a point, anthropology to a point. We learn about all these different facets, computer science and what have you. But there's nothing about like, hey folks, the reality is this is how you really truly survive in a society 101. Like this is how you actually take care of yourself in order to be able to help take care of other people as well. And really be a contributing member to the society. That just isn't there. And I think that's unfortunate. Now, there are some schools that kind of do like a 101 to get you ready for like freshman year of high school or freshman year of college. But it's like, okay, well, let's now expand on that a little bit more, folks, let's start to bring that in a little bit more. But now just for in general, like once you leave school, these are the stressors you're going to come across. These are, like bring in people from the outside world who said, hey, these are my experiences. Instead of letting people like constantly get bombarded and go through all these like just terrible issues that they have with themselves, bring other people in to share their stories before they really get out there, just to wake them up earlier, to get them like prepared to a point. You can only be so prepared though, right? Like you're still going to go through your ups and downs. You're still going to go through your moments of shock, your moments of feeling like shit. But in general, it's like, just, learn to try to work through things and don't be scared of yourself. Quit hating yourself, quit being scared of yourself, and actually face what you are. And if you don't like what you are, then work on how you can potentially improve it. Not that it's going to be 100%, but at least you can try and put the right step forward rather than hiding all the time and blaming it on everyone else. There's so much insecurity, especially in the US. A lot of it is from marketing, I will say. Again, you have to look this way, sound this way, feel this way. I mean, I do acting. I'm an actor. And I tell you what, I look at every single day, for the most part, I look at acting breakdowns. And it is unbelievable at the strong stereotypes and high expectations of just specifically the look of the actor. Not even just like the acting quality, but the look of the actor is so important. And that can make a lot of people feel so insecure about themselves. It's like, oh, okay, they're looking for, someone who's, very athletic. And it's like, what does that mean? Well, yeah, probably like muscles and da-da-da and this and that, like
muscles jutting out from the neck.
Like male fitness stuff, and it's like, oh, so now I have to compete against that. Great. And just there's so many high expectations out there. And so we just get so insecure with ourselves because some of it is because of that, but there are other issues out there too. And I'm not just blaming just marketing for that. Again, because it's also how easily we accept that as our reality. And we only have ourselves to blame for that if we're truly so easily susceptible to accepting something that someone else puts onto us.
Yeah, and even besides marketing, like you mentioned, it's also education, right? And not necessarily education that we get in school, but what we see our role models model, what we see our parental units or our guardians or our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, the celebrities we look after, right? It's also that we're constantly learning what we should or should not be doing. And Trunk actually had a good point. Right now, the question that we're talking about, everybody who's just joined us in chat, and hello, is it possible to live a normal life and not ever tell a lie? And Trunk actually says the question is, should it be the society that we live in a society that we never tell lies? And I think there's actually a movie out, or it came out a few years ago, where it was a society where I guess nobody could lie, and one man found out that he could. And that's an interesting question there too, because even if we, let's say, had a society where lying was frowned upon, the people who could lie successfully would probably still use it or be able to manipulate people around them to do what they wanted and become successful because they would be lying. And, and then we're talking about integrity at that point. But it is interesting because even if we did have a society where honesty was actually revered and upheld, you'd still have those people who would take advantage. I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and actually, just to bring up real quick too, Dalamaus brings up a good point too, that it's really hard to get a national system in place because you have so many different departments on the national level, the state level, and then the local level of how the education of a specific area is to be run, right? So you're running through a lot of filtration systems there, and it can get really difficult. And even though the local sector can say, oh, well, we want this, on the national sector, they could say, well, for the entirety of the U.S., this is just not allowed. This subject is not allowed, and you can't do anything about it, right? And at that point, what I say to that, and again, that's a great point, so thank you for bringing that up. I would say this: we've got to quit thinking of the hierarchies and the systems we have in place as the end-all be-all, as the ultimate unbreakable, just was here before time began. We look at our voting systems, we look at our political systems, we look at our governmental systems, and we go, well, that's just the way things are. Those are just the way those systems work. It's like, well, no, this is the thing. These things did not exist before man came to be on this planet. We've got to stop thinking of our systems like that. They were man-made or woman-made, and they were people-made. There we go. We'll just, 2018 the shit out of this. They were people-made.
People made them.
They were people-made.
Although it's usually men.
Yeah, they weren't constructed by some unknown entity and bestowed upon us, and we can't break those rules or systems or change those systems. And again, this goes on a different topic, so I won't go too deep into it, but just as a quick note to that we've got to stop thinking as these systems being the end-all be-all systems, that people need to understand that they can change the system.
Yeah.
It is within their control because the systems were created by people to begin with. They were concepts of people just like us. And so therefore, we need to understand that we can change it if we don't like those systems. If those systems are flawed and faulty. And yeah, it takes a lot of people and it can take a lot of time at times. I'm not saying that it isn't going to be a struggle to change it. But it's like also then when we go back to lying to ourselves, is it better to lie to ourselves and say, well, this is just the way things are, I can't do anything, and then piss and moan at home and do nothing about it? Or is it better to then find the things that really irk us and see how we can change them, or see what the root cause of these problems are and change the root problem of it all and really get into it and try to see where we can make it better? And again, I know it's difficult, right? I know it's difficult because we have our own personal shit to deal with in our own lives.
Our matching baggage.
Yeah, our matching baggage, let alone then like the whole nation, right? It's difficult. But then that's where you have to figure out like, okay, well, how much involved do I want to be? Do I want to just contribute money to groups that help with this cause? Do I want to be active? Do I want to do, I don't know, like phoning people about the cause to let them know, or doing email marketing, or what do I want to do in order to help? And that's really the core thing of it. But just remember that these things in place can be changed. Even if it does take time and energy, they can be changed. They are not written in stone, the end all be all. There's nothing we can do about it. It's weird because we grow up with these things, so we figure, well, that's just the way it is. But if that's just the way it is, why is it so different in different countries? Why do we have different political systems, different beliefs, different everything, different philosophies, different structures of how we work our lives if this is the end all be all? It's like we got to be understanding. We got to be understanding of the fact that these can change. These are flexible.
It's like if you're on a giant boat, right, and you're going in one direction in the sea, and all of a sudden someone's like, "Oh crap, we gotta take a hard left." You're not gonna be able to take a hard left if you're in a giant ship, right? You gotta turn the wheel and do it slowly.
It takes time.
But you gotta start taking that one step.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're a country of 5, it's very easy to just turn on a dime. Yeah, but if you have a country of millions, it becomes a little bit more difficult. To a country of 1 billion, it becomes a lot more difficult to turn that ship. But you gotta do it. It's the only way to get things done that need to work, because you also have to remember that, okay, yeah, we had a small ship, we had to expand. The direction we're going doesn't suit how the original 5 people who started this ship, how they wanted it to be. We've got to be flexible and understand things do change, and we need to change with them because we've grown. I mean, do you still wear your baby clothes? I don't think so.
I mean, some people do.
It's good to change. It's good to change.
Some people do. Some people like to. Just larger sizes. And exactly, Dal, too. We were also talking about the difference, or bringing up into question also the difference between, sort of what they call white lies, quote unquote, and just regular lies. Lies that sort of, if somebody wants to go for the team for a sport that they're probably terrible at, and they say, oh, like, should I do it? And you want to be like, no, man, it's going to suck for you. You're terrible at it. But you want to encourage them, right? And you're like, yeah, go for it. Same thing with how you're saying, is it a lie to say that you enjoyed a meal when the food sucked, but you like the people? So the entire meal is not good. The food was horrible, but the company was good, right? Exactly. That's the question. That's the question we're asking.
But yeah, no, I think these are great points too. And again, it's not clear one way or the other. But I think in the end, to get back to the core of the question, we seem to be kind of all in agreement that it's just very hard. Like, is it possible, not thinking about all the other aspects that really make this a convoluted situation or a very complex situation? Could you live a normal life without ever lying? Potentially. I mean, again, there is that option there, but it is a very, very small option, just because the things that get thrown at us, the situations we get put in, and just, again, how our brains work for survival aspect and for filling in all the blanks. It is very difficult. And so at least we've come to more of a consensus, at least between Tatiana and I, that no, it's not possible to live a normal life and just never lie. Even
to
if
yourself
it's,
or others.
Yeah, even if it is unintentional. And again, yeah, we're looking at specificity here. Is it also including if it's unintentional lying, intentional lying, the impact of that lie, or the goal from that lie? Like, there's so many different aspects you could look at. But
and Trunk also says, right, the truth is often in the eye of the beholder, which brings another level of complexity to this question. If you don't think that you're lying,
is it a lie?
Is it a lie? And as you mentioned, Evan, like, sometimes we're really good at convincing ourselves something is truth when it is not.
That's true.
Like, that celebrity probably doesn't want to have your babies. I'm just saying.
No, but I swear to God, all three Hanson brothers wanted to have my baby, okay? The 90s, they belong to me. That was weird.
This comes from the fact that when I was younger and Hanson was out, and I unfortunately told this story to Evin. No, seriously, it was 8th grade, and I fell asleep on a bus coming back from like a field trip from Washington, D.C. Fell asleep on the bus, and I was listening to Hanson. I had this dream where, like, Taylor Hanson whisked me away on his plane. And we lived happily ever after. So,
and they bopped for a good 5 hours.
8th grade, man. That was the trip. That was the trip.
Yeah. Question number 7. Question number 7. What are the most common roadblocks that stop people from achieving their dreams? So what shit gets in your way for you to get from point A to point B? B being that goal, A being where you're starting at right here, right now. So again, we're asking this to the audience as well as to ourselves. Person asking the question will answer first, and of course then the other person will do that. But also, of course, in chat here today on twitch.tv/MindMineTV, they'll be sharing their answers in chat as well. So again, what are the most common roadblocks that stop people from achieving their dreams? Again, this could be a multitude of things depending on the situation. You know, what country are you in? What kind of area of that country are you in? What are your resources economically? What are your resources in many other ways, right? You know, in the sense of like, what has to become your focus? You know, if for instance, food is tough to get in your area, then your main goal usually is going to be survival, is to get food, is to get clean water, is to get clothes on your back. And it's really hard to get to any other goals you may have, whether lofty or not, right? Because those are going to be your daily goals, of course, of just living. But then we all have our actual kind of like dream goals of, well, this is what I want to do for a living, or, you know, this is where I want to live when I'm at this age, or these are the places I want to travel, or, you know, again, there are a lot of different, I think, facets to this question too, depending on your situation. And again, those facets being all the roadblocks you can come across. Coming from, let's say, a first world Western perspective in the U.S., even though you can also there is also a lot of poverty here too. There are people that also go hungry in the U.S. as well. You know, our system is not perfect by any shake of a stick. You know, so I would say, at least looking at it, let's say, you know, you're okay. You know, you're doing okay from a food standpoint, from a clothing standpoint, from a place to live standpoint, you know. I would say for the most part, what will get in the way will be typically yourself. I think one of the biggest issues I see from other entrepreneurs I've worked with, because we've done, you know, we've ran our business for 7 years now, and we've taught social media, we've taught presentation, how to do, you know, how to present yourself in your company, digital marketing. We've done a lot of different things. We've worked with a lot of different people, business owners, marketers, and what have you, actors, who are, you know, small business owners. They run themselves as a business. It's their brand. And what we tend to come across is the fact that people get in the way of themselves, whether intentionally or not. I think the fact is that we become our biggest critics. We also judge ourselves based on other people's successes, which, again, I said there are many facets. So it's basically impossible to truly, to really truly judge yourself based on what someone else does, because of all those different situational things that I mentioned previously. So again, I think it's criticizing yourself too heavily. It's judging yourself based on the success of other people, or assuming that there's a perfect recipe or roadmap, because the things that happen in life are not the same as making a souffle. And even then, there can be a few different ways of making a souffle or making XYZ, you know, so even the recipes can be tweaked. But there is no perfect recipe. Otherwise, I tell people all the time who I'm working with, teaching or mentoring, I say, well, you know what? We'd all be on a beach sipping margaritas probably by now if there was that one clean-cut recipe like so many different publications like you to think, whether it's Success Magazine, Entrepreneur, or what have you, Inc. I don't care who it is. You know, it's not just about like, well, you know, all people who are successful or who reach their goals or achieve their dreams had only 8 hours of sleep, or only drink tea, or on an all mushroom diet. I don't know what the fuck that is. But I'm sure it exists somewhere. Those things don't help you succeed. But sometimes our strong beliefs in these potential recipes can get in our way, because now we're just expending more of our time and energy trying to be fit into this perfect line that we're being taught should be the way, you know, the only way to get to our dreams, when it isn't. It doesn't work. So I think, you know, you have to be willing to just throw yourself out there. You have to be willing to learn from those experiences. And, you know, some people are going to know about resources quicker than you will. And you're going to be, you know, like a year in or 2 years into your working on your dream. And all of a sudden you'll come across something and be like, oh my God, why did I know about this to begin with? This seems so simple and so obvious. Well, evidently it wasn't so obvious, right? We're going to get in our own way. It's going to happen, you know, or there were just different focal points at that time. But as soon as you start noticing other things, to me, that means that there is growth. And that is a good thing. Hold on to that. When you learn something new and you realize there was something out there this whole time, that's an opportunity to jump on it and start using it then. So that's growth. That's a positive step in the right direction. Take that and run with that energy. Run with that newfound discovery and build off of it. If you don't do that, though, you're only going to hurt yourself. So again, it's just getting out of your own way. To summarize it up, it's just getting out of your own damn way, being willing to accept new things, being willing to adapt and change, because especially as you're starting off trying to achieve a dream in the very beginning, you're going to have to adapt a lot. You're going to have to make a lot of changes and be okay with that. If you're not okay with change, it's going to be very difficult. And also, Dalamal's did find the all mushroom diet. I'll be damned. It's there. Thank you, Google.
for the win.
Fun guy for the fun guys in chat. Enjoy. So what about for you, Tatiana? What are the most common roadblocks that stop people from achieving their dreams?
I think along a similar vein to what you said, in some ways. So I would say two things I think are the two roadblocks that stop people from achieving their dreams. And this is what I believe. One is resources. If you are born in an environment that provides you with the resources that you need, whether it's loving care from whoever's taking care of you, being financially stable because you have the currency to survive in the economy, having a supportive network, having that finance, having the ability to have opportunities, those are all resources to me, right? It's like spawning in a game, in a survival game, and you've got all of the resource nodes you need right there and then. You don't even have to travel, right? You got your iron, you got your stone, you got your wood, you got your thick hide. You have all of those things to kind of go off of Conan there, which is a game that we play on Twitch if you're listening to us on Podbean. If you have all the resources that you need, great. Like you're already like 5 steps ahead of everyone, right? So when you don't have those resources, when you have to work at it, or you're in an environment that doesn't give you those opportunities, in some ways it is almost insurmountable to get over that hump, no matter what your inside is telling you, right? So I think resources is a big one. The other one is complacency, like mediocrity. The fact that you might be at a place where you're comfortable and it's good, and so like shaking up the status quo to go after what would be better or greater is just like that complacency is like holding you down. And I guess you could also call that sort of like the belief in your own ability, your self-worth, or your drive, your ambition, your boldness, something like that. I think of it as complacency overall, just because you could be very driven, but if you are somewhere comfortable, right? Like if you're at a spa and it's really nice there and the lavender smells are relaxing you and everything like that, but you got to get to work. Like having that willpower to get above that, it takes a lot of willpower, right? So that's kind of the two things that I think are the roadblocks, is resources and then complacency. They do say, I think someone did say this, or maybe I'm making it up, but mediocrity is the villain to greatness, or something like that, where you're sort of like, well, I've got the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence, so I'm good. But like Evan said, is that what you really want though? Or is that what you're like been marketed to by your entire network of people and marketing and whatever else that you saw, and I do think that resources, again, having the ability to start in a way higher on the ladder, if you will, to get to the top being your dream. If you start halfway up the ladder, like, you're obviously going to be better off than someone who's starting at the bottom of the ladder.
Mm-hmm. And I would say too, to help people get out of that complacency, a good thing to do is just step back. Take literally a day to yourself and not fall into the routine of errands or watching TV and just zoning out. Though, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's good in moderation to just kind of zone out, play a game, watch TV or whatever.
I watch a lot of TV.
But actually, just even if it helps you, just sit outside somewhere somewhat isolated, or with music on, whatever it is, and just think about your day. Think about your routine. Don't fall into it, but think about what steps you actually take in the day. Are there things that make you happy? Are there things that make you frustrated or make you depressed? Look at those. See how you can amplify the good things and see how you can decrease and get rid of the negative. See how you can input or place into this process new steps, new ways of doing things, or new things to do overall that again will help you get to that goal. I know for us, when it comes to streaming and business and everything else, everything that we do from a content perspective, you know, it's very easy for us to get blinders on and just go, okay, cool. Today is another game stream, or today is another talk show. Great. Okay, these are the things we're going to do. These are things we're going to talk about. Boom, 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 boom. All set in place. Great. Beautiful puzzle. Filled in. Ready to go. But then there's times where we step back and go, okay, Tatiana, let's sit back. Let's take a Saturday. Let's take a Friday. Let's take a Monday, whatever. And let's look at everything. Let's just do a kind of a catch up and see where we're at, what we're doing. And it's amazing once you do that, how clear the picture becomes. It's almost like our vision becomes kind of foggy or clouded because everything is so robotic and so automated because we've done it so many times that the habitual actions just fly. And just, you know, all of a sudden that's the end of our day. Okay, now we go back to sleep, we wake up, we do the same thing over and over again. But step back and review everything, analyze things and go, do we like this? Is this actually working? Should we change something? What else can we do? And it's amazing the ideas that can flourish and come out of those little sessions. And, you know, if you think that's a waste of time, then you don't believe enough in yourself. Because if anything, you got to first be able to invest something into yourself to help improve you in order to then help improve other things in society, in the world. You can look at it as optimistic thinking or whatever. But again, what you put in is a lot of times what you can get out. Sometimes you have to put in a lot more, though, unfortunately, in order to get something back. And you feel that a lot of times initially through a process when you're trying to achieve something. It's just a part of it. Depends on the situation you're stuck in. But either way, eventually, you stick it out and you keep pushing and you keep moving forward. You will see it if you want it. But it's only if you want it. And you've got to, again, make sure you don't follow the habitual actions. Again, it's nice to have in place just that way you can function throughout the day, right? And not be a nervous wreck of, okay, what else do I need to do? And okay, did I do this? And did I do that? And did I turn off, did I turn off the stove? Did I feed the cats? Is my house on fire? I don't know. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Everything's fine. So that way you don't have like a freaking nervous breakdown. But at the same time, it's good to look at everything, go, how can I break this up? How can I change these? How can I shake things up a little bit if I want something bad enough? And I think that's really important. Hopefully it's helpful if you're stuck, at least in my mind, if you're stuck in that kind of complacency, how you break out of that.
Right. And there are some circumstances that, again, boil down to what I call resources, such as, being, if you've got to, let's say, go to a job to get money so that you can live and, survive. But there are no other opportunities for you to break out of that for a myriad of reasons. That to me does boil down to resources. And that is a lot harder to get around, right? Because, that's like saying, well, I really just want to live on the moon. Okay, but it's really hard to get there. There's no air, there's no water, there's no food. And, right. So, that is a huge obstacle, right? And that's a huge dream. But like Evin said, that's the time to really step back and look at, okay, back to that ship analogy. My ship is heading in this way. I need to be heading towards a land that is nowhere near. How can I do it, right? What step can I take today that tomorrow will allow me to take another step that will then allow me to take another step that will slowly point me in the right direction, give me the ability to go there, and really look at all of the things that you may need to get to there, right? And see how realistic it is. And then after that, and I'm not saying that you need to change your dream, but you do need to look at your dream and look at it realistically and say, is this just, a dream, or is it something that can be attainable? And how can I close that gap between what is attainable and what is a dream, and make it with something that I want to live more, like that I want to do more than what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. And just, kind of change and reframe what your expectations are as well. because, they talk about, setting, when you do goal setting, right, that you have to do SMART goals. And I forget what the SMART is for, but one of them is, I think the R is for realistic, right? Setting realistic goals, because then with each goal or with each kind of dream or step that you take that makes you feel like you have achieved something, it empowers you and it gives you, I think, something on the inside that allows you to keep going and makes you feel better. And that's just what I think.
Well, and if it helps too with the process, look at your overall goal. Let's say it as a goal rather than like a dream, but like as a goal. Look at that end all be all goal, but then look at what other steps could be considered goals as well. Because if you look at that main end all be all goal, it could be very lofty. It could be a really big process. So at least look at some steps toward that direction that are also goals that you would feel really good, really proud about, and feel like it would move you forward. And, you're still achieving some sort of goal on the way to that end all be all goal. But don't just have the end all be all goal and no steps in the middle, because it'll always feel unattainable. It will always feel out of reach. It will always feel like it's just too far and too much. But having those initial steps will help the motivation, will help the process, and will make things more realistic for you. And sometimes you will realize that by taking those steps and achieving those smaller goals, that maybe that end-all be-all goal wasn't what you wanted in the first place. And maybe you find yourself steering in a different direction suddenly. And then that could save you a ton of time rather than trying to reach that end-all be-all goal and maybe perhaps almost get there and go, this isn't what I wanted in the first place.
Oh, I've had that happen to me.
It's amazing, right?
Getting to a goal and being like, wow, I kind of really hate this. Never mind, back to the drawing board. And thank you, Trunk and Mongo. SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time limited. I like, so achievable is I think that it was the A I was going for, and then not the realistic.
But yeah, no, thank you very much for that. And also at Dalamos, you make a great point too. Even if you can't complete it, maybe someone 200 years later can, if they use your past experiences. So yeah, it's like looking, for instance, like what we've done with Da Vinci, all of his sketches, all of his inventions, people have taken that and amplified it and made it into something. This is the reason why we have things like the helicopters that we have and everything else, is a lot of times because of those sketches and inventions of the past. So it really depends on what your goal is too, right? Is your goal just to be able to complete it and that's it? Or did you want to leave a long-lasting impact on a certain industry or a certain niche or a certain system or a certain people that then they can carry on with and really do something with? So that's also something to think about too, is like with this goal, what's the point of it? Like, what's that so what factor? Why am I doing this in the first place? Is it because someone else wanting me to do it? Is it because I want to do it for myself? Is it because I want to do it for other people? And there's no right or wrong when it comes to self versus other people. That's fair. That is fine. Again, depending on the situation and goal, that's completely fine. But just having that understanding to begin with, because for instance, you never want to go into a business saying, well, I'm going to start up a business. Okay, well, so what? What's the point of it? What do you want to do with it? I don't know, but I'm going to start up a business. Oh, okay. Do you know what you're going to do? No. Okay, do you know why you want to do it? Because I want to start it up. Okay. And, you may laugh and chuckle, but I've run across that with people. I've run across people who have done that. They're like, oh, well, I'm not sure what, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to start up a business.
Right. I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, really? Because that's a lot of work.
And there's
a lot of time that you got to spend every week.
Oh, yeah, and there's so many people who say, well, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur, for example, that we've talked with, that we've worked with in the past and everything. They go out and, then finally try to be that entrepreneur, but they don't know what to do. They don't know. They haven't really looked at it or invested the time into it, that all of a sudden, like a couple weeks later to a couple months later, they're working for someone else. They're working for someone else again because they just didn't put the time into it. They're just like, well, I just want to do it. Okay, but what is that so what factor? What is that why that is driving you to do this? Because if it's the wrong why, you're not going to achieve it and you're going to end up going backwards. And then that's even more time wasted. So anytime you do something, you got to invest the time into it, especially if it's really life-changing, if it really changes how you typically run things in your everyday. So, just my 2 cents.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing to think about as well. Is, you know, if you have a personal dream for yourself, you know, also looking at the why do you have that dream, and can it be achieved? Can that why be satisfied or achieved using a different end dream or a different end goal as well? Like this is a small dream that I had, but I wanted a BMW, an X3 when I was younger, because I really liked the look of the car. I thought it drove really nicely, and it's expensive, and I just remember looking it up all the time and lamenting my little Corolla that I had. And I looked at my, you know, my budget and my savings, and I was like, there's just no way. Like, I'll have to get a different kind of job. I'll have to change my lifestyle. Like, I can't eat sushi all the time. Like, I had to do all this stuff, and I didn't want to give all that up. And then I remember I was looking at you know, those what are those called? The coupons that come in the mail or whatever around here. And I was just flipping through, and they were like, Nissan was having a sale. And I was like, oh, you know, like my dad had a Nissan. I'm like, I'm gonna look up Nissans. Like, that sounds like a good brand. I like them too. And they had a sale on a car, a Nissan Rogue, which I wound up getting, that looked very similar to the BMW X3. And I remember looking at it, and it had so many of the things that I wanted from that particular BMW car model. And I remember when I, you know, went there and I drove it, and it just felt so good. And I loved everything about it. I was like, this is it. I'm here. My dream is achieved. And just like that BMW just went right out of my head, because all of the whys of why I wanted that particular car had been satisfied by this other car that was much more affordable, and I wound up liking even more. So yeah, thinking about the why and what you want from that particular dream, and if maybe it doesn't seem achievable, or it's too hard, or it requires you to make changes that you don't want to make. I did not have to give up my sushi eating lifestyle to get the Nissan Rogue. You know, it's worth looking at the why as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And now on to question number 8 of 35 deep questions you've probably never asked yourself, and kudos if you have.
What do you attribute the biggest successes in your life to? And what about your largest failures? Speaking of, the biggest successes. What do you attribute the biggest successes in your life to? So first, I guess you have to look at what do you define as a success in your life, right? So I would say wow, this is a tough question. What do you attribute the biggest successes in your life to? I would say one is
That's such a layered question, Trunk says. It really is.
I think, and I don't know the exact terminology for this, but I believe the phrase that I'm going for here is "fuck it, let's do it." Is definitely one of the things I attribute my biggest successes to. I think pretty much everything that I have been super excited about having achieved in my life was a not necessarily an overnight result from, but definitely a result from one day me saying to myself, fuck it, let's do it. That includes things like moving to California, which was a goal and a dream of mine ever since I was like 15 years old. I finally did it. And it was not nearly as painful as I thought it was going to be. The other success, I would say, is it's I guess it's still a work in progress, but I've had this vision and this dream of writing a novel, a book series since I was little, like 10 or 11, and never having enough faith in myself. And I'm still not there yet. It's not done yet, but it is so much further along than I could have ever imagined. And it is so rewarding to think that one day I'm so much closer to that goal. Yeah. And then some other personal stuff that I also attribute to, fuck it, let's do it.
But what about your largest failures now? So you mentioned the successes of just kind of saying, letting go and just go, well, fuck it, let's just do it. And just kind of plow forward helps.
Yeah, getting out of my own way in a way, as you were saying.
Yeah, and that doesn't always work for everyone, of course. Each technique is different. Take it with a grain of salt, folks that are watching or listening. But yeah, it seems like for some people... Yeah, it seems like for some people, that does have an impact, though. That does help just to get them initially going, because it gets them just getting out of their own head and just saying, okay, fuck it, we're going to plow through this. Just move forward. Let's just go. Let's hit the gas and see what happens. And if we hit a wall, we hit a wall kind of thing. Sometimes it just helps enough where it helps you to think on a bigger scale. It can help you get moving. That can help. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it can, though.
Well, I think if that question could allow for another attribute, another attribute would definitely have to be something akin to luck, but also just like the openness and the ability to recognize when an opportunity presents itself to you as well, and being open to that. In terms of my largest failures, that would I would attribute those to not really paying attention to my inner voice, and just still lying to myself, if you will. I guess because some of the decisions that I have made in the past have been because I was listening to other people's voices and not myself. And I was too scared to listen to myself. I thought that I was on a path that was on the path that I was supposed to go on. Even though inside I was like, probably no. trying to be a little vague, I guess, but that's really what it is. A lot of them, at least my personal failures, and I think there's been things that have happened in my life that I don't regret that they have happened, because I am here because of what has happened. And so had they not happened, my life would be very different, and I don't want that. But I would say, from a perspective of if I had to put failures up somewhere, it's like, two major things that have happened in my life that I have been, I shouldn't have done, I shouldn't have gone down the path that I did. And when I was on that path, it felt like to me like it was too late to change course, when that wasn't true. And by the time that I realized, no, this can't happen, it, sort of failed, and spectacularly.
So basically, what I can take from that, then, being a listener here,
objective and not
is the fact that what you can probably take away from this then is the fact that sometimes it's okay to just say, fuck it, let's just do it, let's just try it. But knowing that there is that concept of there is too much of a good thing, and therefore it is important, though, that when you do have this kind of natural irk or instinct or something in the back of your brain that's telling you, hey, you need a little bit of structure right now, that can be also a good thing, and that can be okay, because you can't just plow down, or you can't have your head down and plow through everything all the time. That just doesn't work for everything. That's not an end all be all. You know, just because you can hammer in a nail with a hammer doesn't mean you can hammer in a screw with a hammer. You could, but it doesn't work out very well, right? And so it's like that tool doesn't work for everything. So don't also, you know, do one tool all the time for everything in moderation. Trust in yourself and in your instincts at times when you feel like it is important and it does come into play and will only help you, is what that seems to sound like to me, what I can take away from what you've said.
Sweet.
And actually in chat too, GL Gamer says, my own personal largest success would be over so many years, pretty much throughout my entire life, finally starting to learn how to cope with my self-negativity and depression, mental afflictions, how to be better towards myself in small steps. As far as a personal failure, hard to say. I initially want to say not being able to stick to my art college back in the day, and realizing I had depression, or allowing myself to sink into self-hatred for so long in the first place. That's very fair, and I think a lot of people can definitely understand that and connect with that in one form or another for sure. And thank you for sharing that, by the way, Jill. Really appreciate that. And then, of course, Trunk says, well, the largest failures he's had is due to the fact of just saying, well, just fuck it, let's do it.
Yeah, that can definitely go both ways. I feel like usually, at least for me, there was a silver lining to any fuck it, let's do it that didn't end up in a personal success. And Fused Fury says, I'm gonna check out my dream car out next weekend. You go, man.
That's right. Do it anyway. They'll probably just let you drive it, and then you could say, no, I'm not interested. I'm looking for better. I thought this would be much, much better.
Before the BMW X3, my dream car had been a Corvette, a Chevy Corvette. And when I turned, I think it was 21, there was a show, like an auto show nearby. My dad took me there, and we were allowed to drive the cars. And I drove it. And it sucked. I hated it. It was the worst thing. And that is actually when I realized, man, I do not like low cars. I want to be like in a giant truck. Like I want to be tall. I want to see things. And that cemented it for me. And I have never, like I see Corvettes now and I'm like, oh, man, it's nice. I was obsessed with them before that though. But yeah, dream cars, man.
And then also talking about dreams. This is going to be an interesting question, actually, for question number 9.
Well, we still have to hear yours.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So,
answer.
With the biggest successes to your life, I would say on my end, probably the successes were from being willing to fail. In all honesty, is when I thought I might fail at it, or it's not worth it, or it's futile to try to jump into something. Really, it's just about being willing to go, okay, well, then if I fail, it'll happen. If not, great. You know, and just being willing to fail. And I'm not perfect at it. I'm still working at it. But I think overall that has really helped me to do what I've done thus far. And it has been really interesting to think in that sense, right? To be like, yeah, it's okay to fail, because we all try to avoid it in some form or fashion, right? And there's some part of us, you know, some sort of insecure part of us that always kind of cringes when something could potentially pop up. And it depends on your personal experience too. You know, if you've had some major failures or embarrassments or things that have just kind of popped up, it could be even tougher for those people to be willing to take that on. And but I think for me, any successes I've had in life have just been from the willingness to fail and be like, it's okay to fail, because it's actually really not a failure. It's a gain, because I learn from the process. I learn what not to do, or what doesn't work for me, or what doesn't work for that specific situation. Shit happens, you know, and it's up to me to understand it, to take it in, and then to use it, to run with it. And only fuel the fire rather than put the fire out. And I think that's really been what's been so important for me, and what's helped me to reach some of the things I have done, my own kind of personal goals. As for largest failures, though, I would say, because again, we're going over the 35 deep questions you probably never asked yourself. And of course, the question is, what do you attribute to the biggest successes in your life? And how about your largest failures? So I would say with my failures, it would be, I think some of it is the lying to oneself. I think just saying, oh no, everything's okay when the house is on fire.
This is fine. I'm fine. How are you?
And not doing something about it. You know, like if I really had an issue about something, or if I really had a dream to do something, is just to do it. You know, because we always go into the negative. I feel like so many of us go into the negative initially when it comes to what if scenarios. And we go, well, what if this happens and this happens and this happens? And it's all bad. It's all bad. It's all bad. Oh my God. Oh my God. And yet there's also so many what ifs of what if this does happen? This could be really good. This could be a learning experience. You know, maybe I might connect to new people, learn new things. Again, it's so easy for us to go down the negative road because we don't want to feel the heaviness, the weight of those repercussions, but yet there's so much good that could come out of it too. And so I think it's really important to personally, not only to, I guess, be okay with failure, but also just to not lie to yourself, you know, not get in the way of yourself. And I think that's one of the things is just to try, you know, and so at the same time, I mean, I guess I'm kind of saying the same thing for successes and failures in a way. Is the fact of, you know, don't get in your way. Don't just focus on the negative what ifs, but also on the positive what ifs, that this is a two-sided coin. A lot of situations, it's not one side or the other. It usually never is.
It sounds a lot like a little bit of how we talked in previous episodes, that, you know, what we determine as a success or a failure for us personally, for example, is how, in some respects, in how we spin it for ourselves, right? That they can both be certainly learning experiences, but at the end of the day, unless there's some like factual thing, like, you know, something was actually lost or something was actually gained, sometimes the success and failure is a little bit of what we make it and how we spin it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, yeah, I think that's it for me. Again, you know, not that everything's worked out, and you know, success is kind of a loose term, because a lot of times we don't really achieve what we had in mind, but that doesn't mean it isn't a success. That doesn't mean it isn't an achievement. It just didn't fit into the box we, you know, basically preconceived. You know, it's like basically we're rushing to the end before we actually get there, and before we actually even a lot of times take the initial steps to that end, to that goal, to that destination. And again, that's only on us. You know, I think we get so fixated on an end goal that it becomes real in our heads, but it's like we never had that. Like, I can't tell you how many actors I've worked with where they said, oh, well, I lost the role. You lost. Oh, so they offered it to you? Well, no. Then how'd you lose the role? Well, because I didn't get it. But it wasn't your role. Like, if you auditioned for a role, that doesn't mean it's yours, right? And we've got to come to that understanding, like, especially in the acting world, it's not yours. What your job is to just create a character and give the best version of that character that you can give to the people you're auditioning for, and that's it. But otherwise, that role is not yours. In the end, they decide who the role belongs to, you know, what this character really is. And yeah, you know, they have more time looking at the script and understanding the character. So they might have a completely different version than you do of it. And, you know, that's part of the process, unfortunately. You know, you don't have time to sit on a script for a month, understand a character, and then audition for it, you know? That's just the way it is. But, again, it's never your role. So you got to go in there just going, hey, I'm just going to give them the best version of this character that I can give and see what happens. And that's it.
Yeah, and from the director standpoint too, like, I know that I've seen actors and actresses that were amazing, but they just did not fit what I had in mind for a particular character, or they didn't fit, they didn't have the chemistry that was needed with this other character and this other actor that really fits that particular role, or you know, whatever it might be and stuff like that. So there's a lot of factors that that go into that as well, that are to some degree out of your control, because it's not something that you can do, but you can go in there and deliver one heck of an audition.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, exactly.
That is in your control.
Yeah, and Denungi actually in chat says, well, actors need to treat auditions like a job interview. And that's a good point too to bring up, that, you know, a lot of people, just to expand this out outside of performance, is the fact of the job interview. A lot of people say, I lost the job. Oh, so you were offered it? No. Okay then, well, you had this fixation on the end goal, and you made it so real that you set up impossible expectations for yourself that, you know, if you were to succeed, you can't enjoy it as much because you're just like, well, yeah, because it's mine. I should have gotten it anyway. Whereas if you lose it, it's so much harder to get over that. But we're setting that up for ourselves. So we have to get beyond ourselves and just go, well, I'm just going to give them the best version of me I can for this interview. And hopefully I am what they're looking for. And if not, that's not a negative thing on me. That's just like, well, they were just looking for something different. Great, because now at least I know and I can move on to try for something else.
Right, and it goes back to the SMART goals we were talking about for the previous question. Yep. You know, achievable. You know, kind of that realism, bringing that little realism back into our lives. And just to kind of wrap up, I guess, on this question, you know, successes and failures. I feel like for a lot of my life, daily life, normal me just going about my day, I don't think in goals or dreams a lot of times. And so when something does happen, that's when I'll categorize it as a success or failure, if you will, right? Like something will happen and I'll be like, okay, that was a success. Like this car accident that happened to us a few weeks ago. Like once it happened and I had time to relive it and put a little bit of closure on it. You know, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, well, it's a success that everybody walked away alive. Fantastic, wonderful. The failure is all of our cars, you know, got like pretty hurt pretty badly. But the other success was, wow, like, okay, I survived mentally and emotionally a car accident. I now am better prepared to that if, you know, something else were to happen in the future, and hopefully it doesn't, knock on wood, I will be better prepared to handle it. So the success there is, great, I'll put this in my baggage, put it in there in my little carry-on, and I have it for future experiences. So.
Yeah, and that's all you can do, right? You take it with you, you learn from it. And, you know, we mentioned this too, of like, don't block out that information. Don't block out the negative. Don't hide away from it. You know, again, be honest with yourself and work with yourself, because that's the only way you're going to work through anything, is to be honest with the situation or with what you're going through. So bring it with you and use it as a strength rather than thinking of it as a weakness. It's only a weakness if you set it up to be a weakness. You know, and that's really the core of it. And actually, real quick, I do want to hit on this just because it is an interesting kind of perspective or twist to what we're talking about here. Denungi brings up too, you know, just want to bring up perspective from LA actors. Should you go into audition, do the best you can, walk out and forget it? Like start working on your next audition instead of focusing on one audition. And I think that actually hits on a lot of different things, right? Like when we mentioned about like going in for a job interview or looking at the overall dream in comparison to like different steps to get to the end dream. And I think overall is, you know, as the saying goes, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Always assume, especially in the role of an actor, always assume that the next thing you see is an opportunity. So don't just hold on to one opportunity, because the thing is too, especially for auditions and in other situations, it's not like someone's going to call you and go, hey, sorry, you weren't accepted. You just don't get told anything. And, you know, that means no. And you know what I mean? Like it could be a job interview. It could be an application to something at times. Sometimes that happens. It could also be for a role as an actor. You know, you can't just sit there and wait. If there are other opportunities that you see and you go, yes, this is another step or another way of getting to that end goal of being like a full-time working actor as an example, then just move on to the next thing. And if something does pop up, great. If not, you know what? Shit happens. You know, say for instance, if someone waits a month to call you and be like, hey, we want you for this role, you could be like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry, but I got to work. I got to put food on the table. You guys, and again, don't have this like arrogant mentality about it, but in a way it's like, hey, unfortunately you missed out. Like, I have to go do other things. I have other opportunities that came up to me, and so I had to get on those because I didn't hear back from you all in time. And that's how you have to work things. You know, sometimes you just can't wait. You've got to look at what you've got, what you're working with, but just understand the implications of your actions too. You know, if what you decide on does put other people in a really bad position, but it's not their fault. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Like, you promise a friend that you would help them with something, but then you're like, oh, well, I had to do other shit. You know, that's a different kind of scenario in its own right. And then you have to look at the morality ethics and stuff of the situation. But I think overall is just like, you know, if you're moving forward, don't fixate on one little thing. Try to look at the other steps that you can take to get to your end goal. That's going to be really important because, yeah, especially for an actor, you know, if you want to keep working at a cafe or Starbucks or whatever you're doing, then more power to you. But if you really want to start getting more paid gigs and start networking, you got to just start getting yourself out there and not just hope and wait for that one role. Because, again, it's amazing how many people just do that and feel like they're just stuck in the mud. They can't go anywhere. So, and also, thank you for the 100 bits, Denungi. Appreciate it. Hopefully that answers your question and many others, too, when it comes to trying to then project that into their own lives and their own situations.
And like Audio says, don't block the negative, but don't cling to it either.
That's a good point.
Exactly.
It's like that ugly dress that you promise yourself you're never going to wear. But, you know, I feel bad. I should just keep it in my closet. No, burn the bitch. Burn it. Let it go. Begone, Satan. Or something like that. I don't know.
He speaks from experience.
Yeah, I know. Those dresses. I got some.
All right. Question number 9. That is 9.
That is 9, yes. In
9.
Espanol.
Fantastic.
For those Spanish speakers listening.
If you had to sum up the whole human species.
Shit. these type of questions. Holy crap.
If you had to sum up the whole human species in just 3 words, what would those words be? So the whole of humanity. All of it, from what little or not that we know of it, have experienced it.
I would say real quick, jokingly, but the 3 P's are very important.
Uh-oh.
So it's productivity, procreation, and projection. There you go.
Oh.
I think we got a drum roll on there too, actually.
Do we?
Oh no, it's under the.
No,
it's on another table.
Different one. Hold up. All right. Let's say. Would you like to say the words again?
The 3 P's of life of the human species would be production, procreation, and projection. There we go.
There it is.
We got this now. We're getting it down. Different soundboards for different streams. We're trying to blend them all in, folks. It's not easy.
Wait, so is that your final answer, or those are your joking ones?
I mean, it's like half joking, half kind of sad truth in some respects.
Would you like to explain them?
Well, no. You hit yours though, because again, this is you answering.
Oh,
that was for me. That was more of like a quip, but.
Okay. So I would say resilient.
We still here, bitches. We start from the bottom. We start from bacteria. Now we're here.
And now we are spreading like a virus.
No, damn.
I believe there's a film called Virus for that too, I think.
It's getting dark in here. Let's take off all your clothes, cause no one's gonna see you, cause it's dark in here. Okay, sorry.
Excitable.
So we're viral and excitable? No. What was it?
No, resilient.
Oh, okay, we're resilient. Okay, gotcha. We're
viral, yeah, I guess. Resilient, excitable, and complex. Those would be my 3 words. And I can.
And you don't even have to explain them because the question doesn't say and explain them. So I could stick with my 3 Ps and be like, I ain't explaining shit.
All right, yeah, we
take it for what you will. It's like abstract art.
All right.
I'm not going to tell you the reason. You just take the reason. You create it in your own mind.
But yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I would say. I have to say here, just as a quick side note, that
work in progress. That's a good one too.
Like 12, 13, a number of years ago, over a decade. Someone came up to me at a party and said that I struck them as particularly resilient.
Ooh.
And then they walked away, and I was like, oh, okay.
Listen here, Missy, just so you know, you are very particularly resistant, okay?
No, resilient.
Oh, resilient. Sorry, not resistant. You're resistant to the viral infection we're talking about, but you're also resilient.
And I thought that was the weirdest thing. I'm like, okay, first of all, that's a thanks, I think. Is that a compliment? Are you complimenting me? Who are you?
It's kind of like a weird pickup line, too. Like, it's almost like, hey, nice shoes. Let's go back to my place. Like, what the...
Yeah.
Very strange.
But I want to thank that person for saying that to me, because, one, I had to look up that word that day and figure it out. So I learned a new word. Like, I had an idea of what it meant, but I just didn't really fully understand. Like, how do you use that as a compliment? Like, what? Like, use that for something that, you know, it doesn't get worn out very easily. But I did appreciate that compliment, because I was like, you know what? I am resilient. But yeah, that was weird. That's my side note. That's it. I'm done with it.
Actually, to also get on a side note, too, I remember back in, like, the 4th grade, I think I had a teacher named Mrs. Bird. B-Y-R-D, actually. And not like, caw, cuckoo, you know, not like that. And I remember her saying that I had, at times, skin of steel. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And it's like, is that a good thing or not? But it was just the fact that, you know, if someone gave me a little bit of shit, I was just like, all right, well, then I like, at times I would, like, stand my ground. And I was like, all right, well, that's not always a good thing. But, like, I was like, all right, cool. But it's just, like, one of those weird things where all of a sudden, like, a random side note where, like, someone was talking. Where, you know, for instance, you know, someone's just talking and all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's just like, oh, by the way, yeah, well, you know, with this person, you know, they just have this and this, and then you're like, what the fuck?
So is it skin of steel?
Yeah, just, like, basically stuff kind of sends at you and you're just kind of like, whatever. But again, I think that was more so just like, I don't think it was skin of steel, it's more so defiance. You know, where it's like, well, fuck you then.
Well, yeah, if you throw an arrow that way, it'll just bounce right back and hit the other person. It's even better than thick skin.
Yeah, I guess so, right? So, I mean, I'll take that. But these human species, well, I guess in a way the 3 Ps jokingly do kind of work, right? Like, ideally, we continue to progress and move forward because of productivity. We procreate and thus continue to exist. And then we project because we are very good at creating the realities in which we are in and tend to project them onto the world, whether for good or bad. We are very good at that. I mean, I would also say too, though, that with the human species, I had a word too originally before I started joking about the 3 Ps, and then it just whoop, right out. We're forgetful. And
what are we talking about?
Huh? What?
What?
I don't know, I guess the 3 Ps do work in a way. I mean, I think in a way, I think I would like to throw in potential as a 4th P. Let's put it that way.
Oh.
I think, because really, I'm much more of a humanist. I believe that people have the ability to do good, or what's considered good, or what's considered evil. And a lot of it is up to choice. Again, not including the idea too of like mental illnesses and stuff that could also get in the way of said thinking or realities or concepts. But I do believe that we do have a lot of power no matter where we start from. And then again, this could be just naivete maybe, but I do truly believe this. I am very much more of a humanist in that sense of that no matter your background, no matter how you start in life or where you're at in life, you do have the potential. It might be more of a fight for you, depending on, again, as we mentioned, resources previously, among other elements. I do believe that we have a lot of power and we can do a lot of things, both good and evil. And in the end, it's really down to choice. Even if that choice is meant with good intentions, I still think we have that power. And we can really shape and control the world that we are in now and the world we will be in later. And so I do think there is a lot of potential, whether for good or bad, within us. And it's just really up to us then to decide which path do we choose to take.
Choose your path.
That's right. Choose wisely. And again, that's a lot of weight, right? That's a lot of pressure that no one wants a lot of times. But it's true. You know, we look at other people and go, well, how did they do that? Because we all have the potential to do that. They just decide to go for it, to get out of their damn way in their own way and just try something and do it. And you talk to a lot of these people and they ended up in places they didn't know they would end up, honestly. You know, it's just by doing, you know, they say that movement is life. You know, so you have to move forward in order to live. So if you want to live a specific life, you've got to take actions. You've got to progress. You've got to move forward. You've got to move to live.
And bike.
Get a bike?
No, it's like a bike. You bike the bike ain't like, you got to be moving, otherwise it's going to fall.
Yeah, what she said. It's like, you know, you won't fall. Like, you gonna fall.
That's right.
We got some good moments in chat too.
Yeah, I was gonna read through some of them. So Culpuristic says, "Work in progress." W.
3 words. Work in progress.
Yeah, no, that is the truth. Trunk says, "Earth's parasitic life form." Here's that viral.
Damn, there you go.
That viral. Audi Owl, stupid, amazing parasites.
I'm glad no one said taste like chicken. That would be concerning in the worst way ever. Describe the human species taste like chicken. Okay, we're good with this conversation. Number 10. All right.
And just to remind everyone what the question was, it's if you had to sum up the whole human species in 3 words, what would those 3 words be? Let's see what else we have here. Denise, sex, drugs, music. JK.
I mean, it's not terribly off, depending on how you look at it.
Fused Fury says progressive, innovative, and destructive.
I would question the progressive bit. I've known several people who I feel like want to take like 50 steps backwards, but that's a whole other conversation.
But you have potential in your words, so
yeah,
you know.
There you go.
Yeah.
The hope of progression, or the hope of being progressive, maybe. Whatever that version of progressive is.
GL Gamer, creative, destructive, uniqueness.
All right. Creative, destructive, uniqueness.
Audi Owl's second answer, tender when young.
Yeah. That's my response. Like, yeah. Yep. That's an answer. That's 3 words.
So there we are.
I guess it could have been worse. You could have said tenderized when young.
Tastes like chicken. Well, that's foul, Evan. GL Gamer says.
Didn't.
Oh, damn, I switched it out. I apparently need to keep it on there. I need to keep it on that particular soundboard. My bad.
Just for this one instance. Yeah, here we go.
There it is. And you know, it's interesting because I feel like all of our answers are pretty much on the same wavelengths.
Besides the tenderizing. That's on a whole other plane.
And it feeds very well into question number 10.
Which is, are humans better at creation or destruction? That wasn't even a joke. I love it. I mean, it kind of is actually, probably.
We need the gong back in here.
Whew. Last question already. What do you mean already? Already? Jeez. What's it been? Like only 2 hours? Supposed to go like 5. But yeah, I would say like some people are saying creation, some people are saying destruction, some people are saying both in chat right now.
I will say too, this is not the last question. It's only question 10 of 35.
Right? Yeah. So we got plenty more. Don't you worry.
Don't you worry.
But these are all good. These are all really great questions with some great responses. So this is why we're doing this. Shiza. I mean,
humans better at
I'm gonna get told by the
creation
Germans in house how to say that word right. I know. Don't just let me run with it, okay? It's not quite German because I'm saying it incorrectly, but it's also kind of a swear word, so I can get away with it. It's at half and half, right? Just let me toe the line.
It's your show, and you can swear if you want to.
Are humans better at creation or destruction? Well, so this is the thing, though. You know how it's dependent on the language, too, I think. I think it's dependent on the language. What I mean by that is, for instance, people can say, I made a mess. So therefore, you created a mess. So you created destruction. In a way, right? So then, aren't we then really saying the same thing? Can you build something up and tear it down and it still be a creation of sorts? I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive in a way, but I mean, isn't that kind of a thing, like based on our language and how we speak? Oh, you made a mess. So therefore, in a way, a mess could be also considered a sort of destruction, but we made it, we created it. So therefore, couldn't we then say that all humans are better at creation because we can either create something that is good or create something that is considered bad, create something that is standing or something that is then torn down? You know, and it's like, and in a way too, you could look at it in a really interesting way too and say, well, we created the tools to thus destroy. And so, you know, we're also creating something for the means of destruction, but then from that destruction, we can then also create something anew. So it's this weird kind of topsy-turvy language for me when I look at it personally, based on the English language and how we utilize it typically, at least here in the US. So personally for me, it's kind of like saying the same thing. And actually, as Denise says too, I just caught off the corner of my eyes, someone's creation is someone's destruction. It's kind of like, yeah, someone's trash is someone's treasure, right? Like, you know, someone could hate having a tall building up, you know, in their way. Maybe it blocks their skyline or something, you know, their view from outside the window. And then someone tears it down, like, well, we don't need this building anymore. Well, for some of the people that maybe worked at that company, it kind of sucks because that building's not there anymore. Maybe it worked out for them, but for that other person, it's a good thing. So I think it could also be the eye of the beholder, maybe, is really a way of looking at it too. Someone's trash is someone else's treasure and vice versa. So it's a tricky question. I think that's multi-layered, even though it sounds simple. I think too, because you could almost look at it as like the same coin, just the two different sides of it. And eventually we maybe kind of do this kind of cyclical action where we create something over time wears it down, it becomes considered destroyed, only to have something else build up again. You know, because if this wasn't the case, we wouldn't have the cities that we have. We wouldn't have the groups of people here that we have. And I'm talking about not even just in the US, but just in the planet overall. So, you know, I've constantly seen cities come and cities go, and then there's often a renewal. And we always hear about this like urban renewal project and bringing certain cities back, trying to fight against, like this urban decay. And again, I'm just using cities just as an example of the concept. You know, but we see a lot of this, and we hear a lot of this when we look at history books, you know, where there is these great cities being built, you know, the towers of Babylon or Babel or whatever, you know, and all these different, the gardens, the hanging gardens and stuff. And the Library of Alexandria was built up, had all this, and then was burned down to the ground. Then something else rose from the ashes, kind of this whole like Phoenix effect. And I think there's something to that, though. I think with an end comes a beginning. One of my favorite quotes actually is one that's tattooed on me. is a quote from Hamlet, which states that there is special providence in the fall of a sparrow. And so with that saying, what that means to me is that something good can come from something bad. This is basically at the point toward the end of the play where Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come up to Hamlet and tell him, listen, you're going to fight Laertes, but there's a plot to kill you. Like, this isn't just mere jest of a fight. Like, there is a plan or a plot to see you dead. And this is where he says, well, there's a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. Something good will come of my death. Something will happen positive. I'm willing to accept that if that means that we get what we need to. And so I think that's kind of how society works, even if it's unintentional, for our own survival, where we create, we destroy, only to hopefully create something better or something similar, but maybe it's bigger, maybe it's shinier, whatever it may be, whatever your concept of better is or what have you. But yeah, I think that's my overall cyclical answer.
It's like a recycling icon.
Exactly. That's
Create,
what I imagine it as.
Create,
yeah.
destroy. Create, destroy.
And I think from that, we take away something else, right? I mean, if you really want to look at it from a broad perspective, you could look at it from like fossil fuels. You know, originally there was life on Earth before us that predated us. They then went extinct, they died, and then now they're coming back again, this time being used as a source of energy. And again, you can say a lot of comments based on that analogy, but just in general, to look at it from a broader perspective, it's like from one thing came destruction, but then came the birth of something else from that. So again, this kind of recycling notion. What about for you? What are humans better at? Creation, destruction, or everything in between?
Well, I'm going to look at the question, I think, super extra literally, like what they're better at, because I think they can do both and that they equally do both. For me, the ratio is 1-to-1. I think that humans are better at creation because, I mean, just look at our history, right? Like you were saying, like we've made so many things. We've invented so many things. We have taken horrible stuff that has happened to us, turned it around and made it really good. And yes, some of those things are also used for destruction, but I think overall, as a species, we are better at creating. And that creation leading to different new things that can then also be used for creating and destructing.
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 I tell you what, one day I was destructing everything inside.
I was burning the villages.
Burning them real good.
But I do think overall we're just better if you give somebody a way to create something new versus to destroy something. I think we are better at the creation aspect. Basically, I think we can come up with more ways to create something, to make something, bring something in existence. We are way better and more innovative and more varied than we are in the way to destroy that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be my answer for that. And in chat, Mario Man says, we are equally capable of destruction and creation. We can create life, music, art, but we can destroy each other either, or most of the time for stupid reasons. We destroy our environment, the animals. We even create items to destroy. But at the same time, we can destroy things to create. So, yeah, I definitely think, we can do either or really well, but we can do creation a lot better. Essentially.
Yeah, well, and the saying goes, what the left hand giveth, the right hand taketh away. There's a reason why that quote has still come, and it still exists now. It's like, with one hand you can create, with the other hand you can destroy. With one hand you can give, with the other hand you can take away.
And also, destruction doesn't always have to be negative.
You can destroy a bad relationship. I mean, we don't really use that word in that sense, but...
Right, and you can destroy something that is I guess threatening your own safety or life. You can destroy old, inaccurate ways of thinking. You can, you can create things that aren't good. Also, right? You can create weapons of mass destruction. You can create ideologies that suppress others. So creation and destruction also in of themselves are not bad or good words, right? Again, it's like the meaning that we attach to them, and the way that they are used, and what we are creating and what we are destroying. But yes, Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg from The Fifth Element. There's this wonderful scene where he is being called out that he, causes destruction, and by a priest is calling him out, and he pushes a water glass off the table, and it falls down, it shatters, and then all of a sudden a little robot comes to like clean it up. Another robot like spiffies up the place where the liquid was spilled and everything like that. And so he says, to the father, he says, life which you so nobly serve comes from destruction, disorder, and chaos. You see, I created a little destruction, and I encouraged life, because now all of these other people had to create those little robots, right, to clean up the destruction. And I thought that was a really powerful scene when I first saw that film, because that's when I sort of looked at creation and destruction in that sort of way of, well, yeah, it depends on how you use those actions, where that's what matters.
Oh yeah. Well, and two, even though we say, we're kind of emphasizing this a little bit more, or I am right now, by saying, yeah, destruction has a very negative connotation. It's a very heavy word, but what comes out of it could be a positive, right? Like we said, like destroy a bad relationship. And Red in chat says, well, the end of creativity in the world there. Even Hollywood starts to create duplicated movies and games, and even worse, same games, 3-4 companies keep doing the same old thing. And so it's like right there too, like, yeah, we're getting creation from those companies or those brands, right? We're getting creation of something, but it's pretty much the same thing. So after a while, is it still good? And so you can even have negative creation as well. Creation that is not good because it doesn't progress anything. It doesn't change anything up. It's just the same old, and therefore really doesn't help anything. Just, it can even become more of a distraction from actual progression. So yeah, there's even a point there too where sometimes destruction is good. Ending something can be better than creating the same old. So there's that way of thinking too. Again, these questions, there's so many facets to them, and they can be very, very convoluted in a way. There could be many, many points of view to it, because it's all based on perception a lot of times too, how we perceive the questions, like how we perceive our reality. So thank you for bringing that up, folks. And yeah, I don't know, is there anything else you want to touch base specifically on that question?
No, thank you everybody for the awesome answers and conversation in chat. It's been really fun to talk to y'all about these questions.
Thank you very much for those of you just joining us today or coming back after coming to many of our streams. We thank you very, very much. Again, we are live on twitch.tv/MindMineTV every Saturday at 1 p.m. PDT for our Serious Talk Saturdays, our MindMine podcast/TV, where we talk about left brain and right brain topics. And, of course, we also do game streams pretty much every single other day. So if you want to check us out live, make sure to check us out on Twitch. Otherwise, you can also see more of our videos on our YouTube, youtube.com/c/MindMineTV. Or you can check us out also if you're not listening to us via podcast. You check us out on Podbean. You can check us out on iTunes. You can check us out on Google Play and many other podcast aggregators. Just look up MindMine Podcast for more information there. And also, if you watch us on Twitch, if you could do us a favor, we are asking for this if you're willing to. We'd love for you to also check out the podcast and give us a review. Let us know your thoughts. You know, each system, whether iTunes, what have you, will give you a star rating as well as for you to leave your comments. Please do that because that helps us to grow. It helps us to get real good feedback back on this podcast / live stream. But also it does help more people to come across this content and hopefully help continue to build up the community and thus build up the conversations every Saturday. So we really appreciate if you're able to do that. You can find us once again on iTunes, on Podbean, and on many other aggregators, but primarily also on iTunes. Probably one of the easiest ways to rate the podcast. So if you have an iTunes account, please feel free to visit our link in chat and let us know your thoughts. Again, it's greatly appreciated, but not required, but we really thank you if you do decide to invest some time into that. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's been listening, who's been hanging out in chat, who's been chatting away as well, sharing their thoughts and ideas today. We really greatly appreciate it. This show isn't anything without that as well, without all of you. So we thank you very much for that. And of course, like I said, we do game streams, so we'll be actually streaming this Sunday. We'll be doing more Deus Ex Mankind Divided, so make sure to check us out at 1 p.m. PDT on Twitch. And then on Monday, more Deus Ex Mankind Divided, also at 1 p.m. PDT. Then, of course, we'll have our Tuesday and Wednesday off. Thursday, we're back at it with Conan Exiles, and Friday with more Conan Exiles probably. But also, we have a surprise for you if you want to tell them, and then I can talk about the game a little bit here, but if you want to just introduce it.
Today, we're going to do a surprise stream on a brand new game that is in alpha.
Closed beta. It's
Closed beta. In just about an hour here, 4 p.m. PDT. It's about 3 o'clock right now. So in just about an hour, we're going to come back on stream. And we're going to show you a little bit of gameplay from this new game called Outpost Zero.
Yeah, it's made by Tiny Build and Symmetric. And what it is, it's a sci-fi first-person shooter with base building, resource management, and elements of survival. You play as an AI overseer sent from Earth, entrusted with the future of humankind, so no pressure, and tasked with establishing a habitat that can sustain human life on a mysterious alien world. I will say I played a little bit of this last night. It is a pretty darn good looking game. The environment and the artistic environment is just really cool. It's really, really cool looking. I think a lot of folks will really enjoy, especially of those of you who join us for Conan Exiles and really enjoy some of the survival building games. I think you're really going to like this. So make sure to join us in about an hour here as we'll dive into Outpost Zero, which is a closed beta. So you'll get direct access to checking out this game before it goes live. So this will be really cool. So make sure to come by again in about an hour, and we'll be back up with Outpost Zero.
See you guys soon.